Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Let me begin this evening's meeting with a roll call of the Planning Commission. Please give me a verbal response when I call your name. Commissioner Bisco.
Present.
Commissioner Cash.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Fulford.
Present.
Commissioner Lee.
Present.
Commissioner Struthers.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Vice Chair Heyman is not able to be with us tonight. I will note for the record that 7 of the 8 seated commissioners are participating and therefore a valid quorum.
Chair Fowler, just a point of order. Wanted to note that I did manage to review the first hour and 10 minutes of Tuesday night's public testimony prior to tonight's attendance.
Thank you very much. You're all caught up. Guess what I have to do? I know that you are tired of hearing it, but rest assured that I am more tired of reading it. But Oregon law does require that I read the following information into the record, and it is important information. This meeting is called to order. This is the time and place for the public hearing in the matter of LU-24-027. The subject of this public hearing is an application from Republic Services for a conditional use permit to expand an existing landfill. Oregon law requires that I make several announcements for this hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing and it will be conducted pursuant to Benton County Development Code sections 51.705 through 51.725. In a quasi-judicial proceeding such as this, it is the Commission's duty to apply the law, not revise it. The Commission must determine whether the applicant has met all of the applicable criteria in the Benton County Development Code. The Commission will consider the record as presented and will also consider any new evidence or testimony that is submitted into the record. Please do not communicate verbally or in writing with any commissioners outside of this hearing process. A staff report has been prepared for the application, and the staff report was available 7 days before the first hearing on April 29, 2025. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to the applicant's proposed development and analyzes those criteria. Testimony and evidence should be directed towards the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on the application. Any written materials received by the county staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed into the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the county staff in order to become part of the record. No screen presentations are allowed. If a person intends oversized poster boards, reports, or pictures used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to county staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Now to the commissioners. Does any member of the commission wish to declare an ex parte contact in this matter? Very well. I'll now go through the hearing procedure for tonight. The hearing procedure is as follows. The staff report has been presented. The applicant's case in support of the application has been presented. Tonight, we will continue to hear testimony from persons opposed to the application, limited to 3 minutes. And finally, we will hear the applicant's rebuttal, which is limited to addressing any issues raised during the testimony since the applicant's first presentation. The commissioners may ask questions of any persons providing testimony. However, the purpose of public testimony is to provide information for the commissioners to consider. The public is not permitted to ask questions of the staff, the applicant, or the commissioners. If you are a participant in this hearing, the commission expects you to abide by the following rules. Please be respectful of all participants. Speak only in the order of proceedings or when recognized by the chair. In testifying, please do not repeat previous testimony made at this hearing. Just note that you are in agreement with such prior testimony. Be advised, the chair may halt testimony if it has become irrelevant, abusive, or clearly intended to harass or intimidate the participants in this hearing. Any written or other exhibits you want included into the record need to be handed to the commission's recorder for marking prior to being presented to the commission for consideration. All testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria in the Benton County Development Code or other criteria which the person believes applies to this decision. Failure to raise an issue in this hearing accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the commission an opportunity to respond precludes appeal to LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue. The failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the commission to respond precludes any action for damages in circuit court. To have standing to appeal the decision of the Planning Commission, you must present oral or written testimony to the Planning Commission prior to the closing of the record. Verbal testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please respect the time limit so others have the opportunity to testify. No screen presentations are allowed. So we are now ready to follow the same procedure as we have on Tuesday night. And that is, we will call the next person to testify, and I'll also indicate to the person who's on deck. Hopefully each of you intending to provide comment has been also given a number. And so the number will also be announced as well. We do need your name and address prior to you making your comments. And with that, I'll also mention that we'll take a break again around 7:30. And if my calculations are close, I think we did 38. We heard 38. And I think we have roughly 33 tonight. So we will get through this process this evening. I believe we left off on Tuesday evening with number 34. So first up is Ms. Scott, number 35, with Mr. Gelatley, number 36 on deck.
Hello, I'm Virginia Scott, 37016 Soap Creek Road. My comments focus on the risk of fire to our local communities, homes, recreation, wildlife, industry, business, property, and the well-being of our Adair Rural Fire and Rescue posed by the Coffin Butte Landfill. In Exhibit 20, Fire Risk Assessment for Coffin Butte Landfill, the applicant has outlined 5 fires since 1999 and identified 3 possible sources of landfill fires that have a material chance of ever developing at the landfill. Those include working face fires, grass fires, gas well fires. They have declared that there have been no fires in the surrounding area and have outlined their plan to address and handle fires as they occur. In the supporting document that I provided, I show that there is a distinct mismatch between the E20 report and the data provided by Adair Rural Fire and Rescue, which records 28 fires at the landfill between 2013 and 2025, not 1999. Adair Rural Fire and Rescue has responded to 28 calls at the landfill, 17 to the Republic Services Pacific Region Composting, PRC, 111 fires near Coffin Butte, as opposed to none, and 195 to motor vehicle accidents near the landfill. I question whether any of the fires that involved Adair Rural Fire or the ones that were handled internally were reported to the DEQ as their operations plan states. I also show additional fire risks that are not accounted for in the E20 and show that Republic Services does not have a thorough plan to monitor and address fires, especially after hours, where they rely on the public for monitoring and volunteers for fire suppression. The applicant drastically underrepresents the severity, number, type of fire to individuals and property in the area and asks you to approve their CUP. Exhibit 20 does serve as a useful example of how the applicant handles legitimate fire risk concerns that have been raised by local residents. As I detail in my attachment to the statement, the applicant's arguments are dismissive at best. The fact that they have included the exhibit as part of the application casts doubt on the entire application and gives you further grounds to deny. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Go
Ms.
ahead.
Scott,
Yes.
could you please again state your source that you refer to at the beginning? Reporting the fires between 2013 and 2025.
Yeah, those came from the logs of the Adair Rural Fire and Rescue, and it's included in a table in the attachment that I provided.
And that attachment you provided will be part of the testimony record, is that correct?
Sitting right there, yes,
Good.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Appreciate it. Mr. Gelatley is next with Ms. Gregg on deck.
I'm Bill Gelatley, 10-year resident of Corvallis. I live at 2923 Northwest 13th Place. That's just north of Walnut. So good evening. I appreciate you, as all commissioners, doing a wonderful job of opening up and listening carefully and asking thoughtful questions in response to both the testimony and the presentations. I'm a retired mechanical engineer with over 45 years in high tech. I've been interested in microplastics for a long time, but I'm alarmed about the proliferation of PFAS or PFAS. Forever chemicals is a direct reference to the fact that fluorine and carbon create the strongest bond in chemistry. Keep that in mind as you hear some more. We're all familiar with Teflon and Gore-Tex. We recognize the benefits of nonstick pans, stain-resistant carpets, and water-repellent rain gear. Since 1938, I want you to know that there's a lot more out there. There's been some 4,000 commercial compounds that are classed as PFAS. Big drawbacks rise when PFAS are used as process chemicals in manufacturing, such as integrated circuits. In those cases, they become part of the process waste stream, not part of the product. PFAS in process chemicals are 3 to 4 orders of magnitude smaller than what we call microplastics. And as a result, they are increasingly identified in the circulatory systems of humans and, no surprise, in fish. Here's an example that should concern you. After listening to an acquaintance as concerned about eye drops, I was able to validate the active ingredient in Mibo eye drops as PFAS, called perfluorohexooctane. The CDC's Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry states PFAS contamination has the potential to affect growth, learning, and behavior of infants and older children. It goes on to say PFAS contamination could lower a woman's risk of chance of getting pregnant and could increase the risk of cancer. Thanks to a FOIA request in 2023, we now know that 2022 test data from the City of Corvallis wastewater treatment plant showed leachate received from the Coffin Butte as containing PFAS in levels that far exceed the amounts of water received by Hillsborough and McMinnville. These data call for an explanation. In testimonies from Republic Services, I heard nothing persuasive and responsive to a question about corporate planning to deal with the health threats posed by PFAS. I ask you to apply Mr. Eklund's excellent comments about character. For these reasons and more, I am adamantly opposed to the expansion of the Coffin Butte Landfill. Any questions?
Mr. Galatly, I do have a question. Have you submitted your written comments in the record?
Yes, I have. I edited them slightly. You'll find them very close to what I have submitted.
Very good. And you also refer to a FOIA request about the Corvallis water treatment plant and how it relates to PFAS in this topic. Is that also part of your
I
testimony
have
that you've
not
submitted?
submitted it, but I have talked to others and have received copies of it from them. I've looked at the hard data itself as well as the summaries that they've done.
Okay, and can that be submitted? Can I ask for that? I cannot. I should not be asking, even though it's part of his testimony. Is that the clarifying statement then? If you would like to submit that, you're welcome to. Is that correct?
I'll be delighted to.
Thank
I
you.
think, just for all of the people testifying tonight, if you are referring to something in your oral testimony, but it's not submitted into the written record, the Planning Commission cannot consider it unless it's submitted into the written record.
I believe my information will be reflected in the reports of others. If not, I will supply it for you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Galatly. And just by way of introduction, on Zoom, that is Ms. Ryan, outside counsel, contracted by the county, which helps us to clarify many of these types of questions. So Ms. Gregg, number 37, is next, with Mr. Olson, number 38, next.
Good evening. I'm not Miss Gregg, but I am. Sorry for this evening. And I know to help you, Chair Fowler. So my name is Mark Yeager. I'll talk a little bit about that in my presentation, but I have yielded time from Jillian Gregg, who is number 37, Martha Truninger, who is number 43, Maggie Underwood as number 51, Lynn McAllister, number 59, Becky LeGrand at 75, and Stacy Dodson, number 12.
And just let me confirm with Ms. Boulder, do you have the reconciliation? Perfect, thank you.
So I don't, oh, yeah, okay, great. So 21 minutes. I'll begin now. If I may, Chair Fowler and members of the commission, good evening. My name is Mark Yeager, and I have lived at 37269 Helm Drive in Corvallis since 1987. I've lived in Benton County since 1982. I'm a registered civil and environmental engineer and a certified water rights examiner in Oregon. I have served multiple terms on Benton County Solid Waste Advisory Council and the Disposal Site Advisory Committee from the 1990s through 2023. I am a member of the Adair Rural Fire District Budget Committee. In addition, I served on 2 subcommittees for the Benton County Tox Trash Work Group, the Land Use and the Landfill Life subcommittees, and I was extensively involved in opposing the 2021 expansion. Thank you for your service to the residents of Benton County. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight about the Coffin Butte dump expansion proposal. And I have also submitted multiple comments, written comments for your consideration. I am testifying in opposition to this conditional use permit application, and I'm also requesting the public record be left open for 14 days. Let me start by answering one question that has come up repeatedly in response to previous testimony that relates to the county's record of monitoring and enforcing land use conditions of approval. I served on the Benton County Tox Trash Subcommittee that reviewed the entire record of every prior land use decision regarding the landfill site. At the conclusion of our review of all the prior land use proceedings, the public members of our subcommittee developed key findings that can be found beginning on page 98 of the BCT, the Benton County Tox Trash Report. Key finding CUP F-2 states Benton County has not and does not actively monitor, compliance with many conditions of approval and does not proactively act to enforce compliance. I have a copy of that. So that is in the record now. So I do want to point out that the wording that is in that conditional use or that finding is a watered down version of what our committee wrote. Our much stronger statement was edited by the county just prior to publication of the document. I also want to ask, and maybe I'll wait for the end, but one member, I just want to know whether or not someone has submitted a request that the public testimony from LU 21-047 be included in the record for this proposal. And I'm wondering if that's been done. So maybe somebody can address that. I'm going to talk about a few different things. First thing I'm going to talk about this evening is the traffic impact analysis. A 4-page detailed review of the traffic impact analysis was entered into the written record on April 21st, 2025. It identified several flaws in the TIA, excuse me, including the use of outdated driveway movement volumes, an assumption that the proposed expansion would not result in any increased traffic volumes. That is, no recognition of the analysis of the tonnage cap removal impact on vehicle trips. No analysis of Highway 99 Coffin Butte Campadere Road intersection. Again, that was based on the fact that there was no assumption that the traffic volumes would change. No analysis of the trip impact of the excavation and movement of 3.5 million cubic yards of material from the expansion site, and no analysis of the need for an eastbound left turn lane at the entrance to the Scale Road. I would like to echo Camille Hall's testimony when she recognized that while Republic has submitted a proposal that does not explicitly close Coffin Butte Road, the effect of the proposed Coffin Butte Road traffic plan will functionally close the road to the public. On average, vehicles enter the dump site every 80 seconds. With all the routing of vehicles on and off Coffin Butte Road, north to south, east to west, the easterly 3,000 feet of Coffin Butte Road will essentially be unusable by the public. In addition, Coffin Butte Road is a designated freight route in the county's transportation system plan, and the proposed traffic plan will clearly interfere with movement of timber and farm trucks. In the absence of a revised traffic impact analysis that accurately describes the proposed development's impact on the transportation system, this application must be denied. There is no analysis of the proposed development's short and long-term financial burden on the repair and maintenance of the public transportation system. The major county roads impacted by the development's operation include, among others, Coffin Butte Road, Campadere Road, Independence Highway, and Spring Hill Road. They will all be subjected to increased traffic volumes and accelerated wear and tear. Because most trips to the dump are made by heavily loaded tractor trailers and garbage trucks, the damage to the road system is many times greater than that of passenger vehicles. Who's going to pay for those repairs? The county doesn't have any money. These impacts must be evaluated and included in the analysis to determine whether or not there is an undue burden imposed on the county's residents to repair and maintain the transportation system. I'm going to move on to landfill leachate. For over 40 years, I've worked as a municipal engineer, focusing primarily on drinking water supply, wastewater treatment, and stormwater management. The proposed method of disposing landfill leachate from the expansion parcel imposes an undue burden on public facilities and violates BCC 53215 sub 2. Landfill leachate is a highly toxic, foul-smelling black or brown liquid containing high concentrations of organic and inorganic compounds, including metal ions such as chromium, lead, and mercury, as well as high concentrations of PFAS. This toxic liquid forms when rainwater and decomposing waste mix, percolate through the waste, and dissolve the materials inside the waste, creating a cocktail of hazardous chemicals. Liquid waste often ends up in trash, and garbage also generates liquids as it breaks down. It's common to find pesticides, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, solvents, batteries, and other electronics in the trash. We have submitted evidence into the record documenting that many inappropriate and illegal materials are being thrown into dumpsters and making it into the dump. I have personally witnessed things like these being thrown away at the public dumping facility at the landfill. I don't know if you got my handout. Did they distribute my handout to you? Because I have some graphics that I gave. I gave a copy for everyone. So anyhow, if you were looking at it, it would be figure 1 on the handout that I prepared for you. The Coffin Butte Landfill has a huge uncovered daily working face that receives large amounts of rainwater most of the year. Coffin Butte receives 50 inches of rain per year. And the plastic cover that exists on most of the Coffin Butte landfill has been documented to have many tears and holes that allow rainwater into the buried trash, while methane and landfill gases leak out. Refer to figure 2. I'm sorry you don't have that. I tried to get it to you. Coffin Butte generates approximately 40 million gallons of leachate a year. About half of that leachate is hauled in tanker trucks to Corvallis wastewater treatment plant, and half is hauled to the city of Salem. On a normal day, 20 to 24 tanker loads are hauled to these facilities. Each time these tankers are loaded on site, leachate odors are sent into the air to mix with the other odors generated at the landfill. A neighbor living just south of the landfill says that at the current loading station, she can smell it when they're loading leachate. In contrast, the Columbia Ridge landfill in Gilliam County receives nearly 3 times as much an annual volume of trash, and they impound and recycle all of their leachate on site. Gilliam County gets 13 inches of rain per year. The amount of rainfall affects both leachate and methane production. Unlike Coffin Butte, landfills in eastern Oregon generate far less leachate and typically have 200 feet or more of clay between the bottom of the landfill and the groundwater level. To effectively remove pollutants, leachate requires advanced treatment before discharge. Untreated leachate is often sent to municipal wastewater treatment plants. However, this method is neither safe nor effective because very little actual treatment occurs at a conventional municipal treatment plant. The solution to pollution should not be dilution, but that is essentially what's happening now. The discharge of leachate into wastewater treatment plants in Oregon is not regulated by DEQ. Quoting from DEQ's guidance manuals for landfills, this is a quote, "Discharges to publicly owned treatment works are not directly regulated by the department." Neither Corvallis nor Salem wastewater treatment plants have any special or advanced unit processes operated to deal with landfill leachate. Leachate accepted at those facilities essentially passes through untreated. Leachate also contains very high levels of PFAS. PFAS are widely used, long-lasting chemicals, components which break down very slowly over time. Studies have shown the exposure to PFAS in the environment may be linked to harmful health effects for humans and animals. While the existing landfill will continue to generate leachate for decades to come, a 35% increase in surface area from the new landfill location will add substantially to the volume of leachate. The applicant stated their intent to stop hauling leachate to Corvallis by the end of 2025, but they have not publicly identified where they plan to take that portion of the leachate. Let's talk about PFAS into the Willamette River. Because of the increasing concerns of PFAS compounds, the city of Corvallis began monitoring incoming wastewater along with leachate from the landfill. When the landfill delivers leachate to Corvallis, it's stored in tanks on site, and then slowly it's mixed in with the sewage from the rest of the city. The analysis confirmed, and this is what Mr. Galatly was just talking about, that landfill leachate concentrations of PFAS compounds is orders of magnitude greater than the city sewage background levels. When mixed with influent wastewater, it is quote unquote treated and then discharged into the Willamette River. Concentrations of several PFAS constituents being discharged into the river after treatment are higher than the background levels coming into the treatment plant. Refer to figure 3, which has a graph for you that shows what's happening with that. Recent studies have also shown that aeration processes at conventional wastewater treatment plants result in releases of airborne PFAS. You've heard previous testimony from Pam Castle that details this discussion. Another quote from the DEQ guidance manual on landfills and leachate states the department recommends treatment methods that reduce leachate contaminants, not methods that transfer the environmental problem to another medium. Well, what's happening now is exactly what DEQ recommends against. While there may be some reduction of conventional pollutants like ammonia, other pollutants like heavy metals, pharmaceuticals, and PFAS are being discharged either into the river, up in the air, or end up in the sludge that is spread on local and public and private property. The Willamette River is a public facility and a public service. This leachate disposal method constitutes an undue burden in violation of BCC 53.215 sub 2 by exposing wildlife, recreational enthusiasts, water users, both drinking water and agricultural, to the increased contaminant levels and impacting the use of the Willamette River. There are several communities downstream of these discharges that rely on the Willamette River as their drinking water source, including Adair Village, soon to be the City of Independence, Sherwood, Wilsonville, and the Tualatin Valley Water District. Portions of the existing landfill cells 1 and 1A were closed in the 1990s, and 30 years later, those cells are still generating 2 million gallons of leachate per year. The engineer for the applicant gave the impression that overall leachate volumes would decrease over time once the existing landfill is capped and closed. However, the BCTT report established that no landfill cell at Coffin Butte has been closed since the mid-1990s. Republic hasn't given a timetable for closure and capping of the existing landfill. What if they continue to leave it in its interim cover stage and seek future expansions? Or if this is approved, proceed to implement their 2021 plan to close Coffin Butte Road and fill the valley with trash? The long-term environmental impacts, the serious interference associated with hosting a massive landfill and its planned expansion need to be objectively evaluated. Please refer to written testimony submitted April 28th by Ken and Sarah Edwardson for a detailed discussion of the long-term liabilities. We need to protect the interests of current and future residents of the county. Along with the landfill gas emission reduction, effective leachate treatment and reduction is one of the key aspects of this evaluation. Neither the Benton County staff nor their consultants have asked any serious questions or received any meaningful information regarding these issues. What's my time check? 6 minutes? Okay. So the NRAC recommendation to deny. So in 2023, the county dissolved the Solid Waste Advisory Council, although it is still required by BCC 23.020. Apparently someone realized that they might have a procedural problem regarding review of this conditional use permit. The code, BCC 73.305, still requires review by the Environmental Health Division and SWAC. They are simply ignoring the Health Division review requirement and passed off the SWAC review to the county's Environment and Natural Resources Advisory Committee. Until now, NRAC has been focused on trails and natural areas, not landfills. The NRAC recommendation to deny this application is in your packet under agency comments. It has a very detailed analysis of concerns and impacts associated with this proposal. Staff did not have time to include any of the NRAC specific comments in their report. I recommend that you carefully read the transmittal memo dated April 16, 2025, and particularly the individual member comments at the end of the packet. Jason Schindler, the NRAC chair, has a detailed discussion of the county staff role in directing NRAC's review of this application. So in summary, you guys, I don't know how you do it. You have 3,000 pages of documents and all those things. So I appreciate you listening to me and try to bring some of these things forward. But from my perspective, this decision boils down to whether you believe the Republic personnel and the consultants they've hired to develop reports and comments to submit to support the application, or do you believe the expert public testimony and lived experiences of the residents of Benton County? There are no second chances here, no do-overs. If this expansion is approved, Republic Services will be free to expand and exploit as much land as they own, more than 700 acres, to create a larger and larger dump. The county has allowed this to happen already with the landfill moving into the quarry without the required conditional use permit. Again, 77.305. In fact, I believe this proposal before you is simply phase one of the plans they submitted in 2021 to close Coffin Butte Road and fill the area between Coffin Butte and Tampico Ridge with trash. Their proposed traffic plan and intense use of that highway will effectively close the road to the public. Do you really believe that Republic is spending all this time and money to get approval for the use of property south of Coffin Butte Road for a mere 6 more years of landfill capacity? Of course not. Remember that Coffin Butte began as a hole in the ground to burn trash during World War II to support the Adair military installation. It is an accidental dump. When Coffin Butte was first being considered as a regional dump in 1973, the chair of the North Benton Citizens Advisory Committee wrote to the Planning Commission chair on November 5th, 1973. Let it be clearly understood that we are unalterably opposed to a long-term continuation of the use of Coffin Butte for its current service area. We are even more vigorously opposed to its expansion to serve a 3-county area. Well, Coffin Butte now serves more than 25 counties in 2 states. He also wrote, there is a substantial body of facts relating to the unsuitability of this site and the surrounding area, which have seemed so evident to us as to make any consideration of Coffin Butte site utterly ridiculous and totally intolerable. It is a consensus of the North Benton Area Committee that the location of a regional disposal facility would be extremely short-sighted and very dangerous. These are all quotes. Coffin Butte is far better suited to be a public park than a public dump. Arthur Tollefson was a PhD professor at OSU. The North Benton Citizens Advisory Committee was correct. Here we are 52 years later, same story with dramatically worse conditions. The county has cultivated a monopoly for Republic services while systematically disenfranchising residents who dare to question the wisdom and safety of becoming one of the largest trash dumps in Western Oregon. I urge you to stop this and all future expansion efforts. It is time for a paradigm shift in waste management in Oregon. Expansion approval means business as usual, with more residents being exposed to air and water hazards, serious irreparable harm and undue burdens, and a Corvallis and Benton County reputation as Trash Town, Oregon. Finally, as we sit here in the building named in recognition of the Kalapuya tribe, I want to close with the quoting from the land acknowledgement in the foreword to the Benton County Talks Trash report. And I quote, "It is important that we recognize and honor the ongoing stewardship and spiritual relationship between the land and people indigenous to this place we now call Benton County. We thank them for continuing to share their knowledge and perspectives on how we care for, impact, and protect the land we live on. I urge you to live up to that acknowledgement and deny this application." Thank you.
Chair Fowler. Mr. Yeager, I just had a point of clarification. We have numerous electronic files that have all the written public testimony. Did you or individuals that you are with that material, are they submitted under different cover? Or were they submitted all at once?
So Chair Fowler and
It's Commissioner Wilson.
Commissioner Wilson, yes, sorry, my eyes aren't the greatest.
Okay.
There are different pieces of material. This particular document that I just handed out, it has not been submitted electronically yet. Okay, but the traffic analysis study is in there. I have some information about EPA methane studies. I've submitted information about leachate. So there are multiple pieces, at least from me, and certainly many other people have submitted things. If you have a specific question about some of the
No,
stuff.
no, I just wanted clarification that as we have 8 files that contain all the.
I know. I just-
Record at this
oh my
point,
gosh.
and it's a lot to cover, and you were referring to a lot of different material, and so I just want to make sure that it was, that it's in there, it's at least absent except the materials you just submitted, so.
Yeah, so everything is in there that I referenced when I referenced Ms. Castle's presentation. She presented verbally on Tuesday, and she has also submitted information. Edwardson's letter is in there, not part of my packet, but their own separate submittal.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Yeager, I just have a question. Thank you for that testimony. I have a question about, you referenced vehicles entering every 80 seconds and also the proposed impact to, I think it was farm and large truck traffic, agriculture. I'm not sure. Could you please clarify where you're getting your every 80 seconds, if you've got some context to that? And then also to your point of the other proposed uses of that road that you were referring to that would be impacted.
So Chair Fowler, Commissioner Bisco, the 80 seconds comes from taking the number of reported trips to the landfill that are submitted by the landfill operator and simply doing the math, figuring out 6 days a week. They're open 8-9 hours a day. I don't have the calculations right in front of me, but we've gone over that. I've gone over it numerous times. So it's based on the number of trips to the landfill. And then with regard to the farm and forest impacts for the freight designation of Coffin Butte Road, that's why it's there. I don't have any specific information of how many. I assume it varies depending what kind of active logging activities are happening, how often trucks. Those people are not going to drive out Tampico Road. They're going to use Coffin Butte, and that's why Coffin Butte Road has been designated in the transportation system plan as a freight route.
Very good, thank you. And that transportation system plan you're referring to is Benton County's, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Yeager, thanks again for coming out and spending time with us. Very insightful. I did have a couple of clarification questions for you. In your testimony, you said that DEQ does not regulate the wastewater. Who does?
Well, so what ends up, sorry, Chair Fowler, Commissioner Fulford. They don't specifically regulate the wastewater that goes to the treatment plants. It's a trucked in waste. So there is a pre-treatment program for anyone who, you have to have an industrial pre-treatment discharge permit. Okay, for, in this case of the city of Corvallis, they issued an industrial pretreatment discharge permit to Valley landfills. And as part of that process, they require certain things to be done as the materials delivered to the treatment plant. Now, what's happening here, of course, is that there are no National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits. Those are the permits that we wastewater treatment plant people get. None of those yet control any PFAS because it's not been, the EPA is just starting to put it into drinking water regulations, and they're looking at putting regulations into wastewater sludge and also into wastewater effluent.
All right.
I hope that answers your question.
I think so. You noted that Gilliam County has a liner plus 200 feet of clay. Did I quote that right?
That's right.
Do you know the numbers here for Coffin Butte? How many feet of clay we have between us and the groundwater?
Commissioner Fowler, Chair Fowler, Commissioner Fulford, 0.
We have double liner, but no clay.
No, there's no clay. It's basalt. So it's fractured rock that's underneath there. There's no clay.
All right. And last, you talked about sludge and how it's spread over the agricultural, I guess, farms around here. What's that process look like? I think I'm unclear. Because you've talked about air, you've talked about water, but now you're saying also that it's being spread across our agricultural land?
Yes, Chair Fowler, Commissioner Fulford. So what ends up happening is in a wastewater treatment plant, you have material that comes in. It's a mixture of liquids and solids. And so part of the process in a wastewater treatment facility is they try to metabolize the liquids. They have a bunch of bugs that grow on there, and it creates more solids. So you have some solids that come in. Those solids become sludge, and they then go into a digester. And in the case of the city of Corvallis, they have a Class B sludge program, which means that it gets a little bit of cooking, and then it's a liquid product that goes out in the back of a tanker. And they have just, if you would, the same thing a farmer would have for spreading manure. They have a hose that comes out the back, and they just drive on the farms. So at the Soap Creek OSU beef barns, they put Corvallis' sludge there. Corvallis also puts it on the airport property that they own. I don't know their program intimately, but I know they do it at the OSU beef ranch in Soap Creek, and they also do it at the airport.
All right. And lastly, I guess I have one more question. The Salem and Corvallis wastewater treatment plants, what year were they created? And if we were to create a new one today, would it be able to take PFAS out of the system, a more advanced wastewater? Is that possible? What's the technology look like today compared to what we have in place?
So Chair Fowler and Commissioner Fulford, so what ends up happening when you build a new wastewater treatment plant, it depends on what your treatment standards are that you're trying to meet. And in the case of, so the Corvallis treatment plant may be built in this current version of the Corvallis treatment plant, maybe in the early 70s. I don't know for sure. And similar for the city of Salem. But most treatment plants are not going to have the type of advanced treatment that would be required to remove all the contaminants and leachate. You know, under previous ownership, the waste control systems, the Bunn brothers, when they owned Coffin Butte, I was out there as a member of the Solid Waste Advisory Council when they had the grand opening for their leachate collection and treatment system. So there's a building on the south side, one that's going to be moved as part of this expansion, where they attempted to treat their own leachate. That went on for a very short period of time, and then they shut it down because it's a very complex treatment process in order to remove it, to remove enough of the contaminants to be able to discharge it to surface waters. So the simple answer to your question is unlikely, unless they were specifically designing some portion of the treatment plant to treat leachate. It's not going to be something you're going to find. So the city of Albany did an update in their treatment plant in 2008. There's no way that city of Albany could have the facilities to handle this leachate and reduce all the contaminants, much less PFAS, which we're just really learning about.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Chair.
Thank you for your questions.
Mr. Yeager, I have a couple clarifying questions with permission from Chair Fowler. I wanted to just ask, so what you just commented on, what was the year again that building, when the attempts were made to treat leachate on site?
I think it was in, sorry, Chair Fowler, Commissioner Bisco, I think it was in the 1990s. I know I went out there for the grand opening, and we all sat around and we had glasses of water, but it wasn't leachate water, although they did have cups of water that showed a very clear product. It was a partnership that they developed with OSU. It was a reverse osmosis treatment plant. And I don't know whether or not the complexity of landfill leachate was so complex that it constantly was binding up their RO system, or whether or not the material that is left over after the RO system does its thing, whether that became a problem and they couldn't find a place to dispose of that waste. I don't know what the history is as to why it shut down, but it was in the 1990s.
Very good. And since you have included that as part of this testimony, are you aware that that's in our record somewhere, the reference to that particular attempted treatment facility?
Chair Fowler, Commissioner Bisco, I don't know whether that's in there. It might be in part of the history of in the Benton County Talks Trash report, but I don't know about that.
Okay, and thank you for that. Just a follow-up question to Commissioner Fulford's question on the 200 feet of clay. You stated that there's zero clay here. We have the double liner, as Commissioner Fulford referenced. the purpose or the reason for stating that, what's the context of comparing 200 feet to none? How is that fitting in this record and this application?
Chair Fowler, Commissioner Bisco. So you have heard and you will be hearing testimony about people concerned about contamination, groundwater contamination of their wells. There's a lot of people who rely on well water as their drinking water supply. And so when you have the clay that is 200 feet from the groundwater, you have a level of protection that is dramatically greater than what we have now. We have some plastic liners that once they have 8 great pyramids of material stored on top of them and all kinds of sharp materials. So you got weight and you have sharp materials. Those liners are not going to protect us from contaminated groundwater. And further, cells 1 and 1A, which were closed in the mid-1990s, they do have clay because they didn't have plastic at the time, but they are unlined. They don't have the protection of the plastic liners. So it is the threat that the key about the 200 feet is it's the threat and the danger posed to people who rely on drinking water wells, domestic drinking water wells.
And just to clarify again, you said that was Gilliam County.
Yes, it's the Columbia Ridge landfill in Gilliam County. It's owned and operated by Waste Management, and right across the river, Republic Services owns the Roosevelt landfill, which would be the same. So the two aspects there is one, there's substantially less leachate generated because they don't have the rainfall. And second of all, they're not taking that leachate to any conventional treatment plants and attempting to try to remove contaminants there. They recycle their leachate to keep the trash wet in order to improve compaction.
And then just one last question. Thank you for the comments on that. Clarification again, Gilliam County is Washington?
No,
Roosevelt,
it's Oregon.
Gilliam?
Yeah, it's where
Okay.
Arlington, Oregon is.
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Arlington, Oregon.
And so the Columbia is in Gilliam and the Roosevelt is in Washington.
That's correct.
Okay. One last question then on the leachate treatment process. So you referred to Corvallis and its process generally. Is the Salem water treatment plant process for leachate likely to be similar?
Chair Fowler, Commissioner Bisco, yes, they're very similar. They're conventional activated sludge wastewater treatment plants. In Corvallis, they do have a roughing filter. They have a trickling filter that's held over from the 50s or 60s that they use. But it's just basically activated sludge, aerated tanks that the wastewater goes in, and the wastewater serves as food to the microorganisms that they're trying to grow in those tanks. And it's that growth process that then removes conventional pollutants that we typically discharge through our homes.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager.
I have a question, sorry. You talked about the proposed expansion would increase the surface area of the landfill area that would be collecting leachate by 35%. So do I understand correctly that the pre-existing cells would not be capped and closed? So they would be in essentially the state they're in now, while if the expansion were to be approved, while the expansion was being filled, the pre-existing cells would still be in whatever state they're in now. I don't know if you're the right person to ask this, but.
I do think that's a question to be answered within the application.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Mr. Olson, number 38, is next with Mr. Mellinger, 39 on deck.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate being up here. My name is Greg Olson. I live at 5394 Davidson Street in Albany. Just moved there recently. I was in Corvallis for almost 20 years. I appreciate the talk about paradigm shift, because Currently, there's about 10,000 municipal waste dumps 10,000 in the US. It's proposed that within 10 years, 90% will be closed. So places all over the country are dealing with what we're dealing with right now. Seattle was dealing with this 30 years ago, and their solution was to use Columbia Ridge Landfill in Arlington, Oregon, accessing it by rail. They sent trains from Seattle down to Columbia Ridge Landfill, 320 miles away from Seattle. Currently, 63% of Seattle's waste goes out by train using intermodal containers or gondolas. The trains are 4 to 5% more efficient than trucks. But again, the Columbia Ridge Landfill, it's 2,500 acres. It has a current lifespan of 143 years. So that's not going to be filled up in 10 years or 50 years or something like that. And again, with the clay and the low rainfall, the production of methane and other toxic gases is way reduced. So the use of waste trains, I'm going to be focusing on waste trains. Mr. Yeager was talking about a paradigm shift, and that was a paradigm shift for Seattle, and it could be for us, is the use of waste trains. And one of the reasons I'm kind of excited about that for our area is the recent coming to life of the Mid-Willamette Valley Intermodal Center in Millersburg. They had 3 extra tracks that were built. They had a plan to ship hay to the Orient. It fell through. So a variety of things have fallen through on them, but the facilities are there for intermodal trains. Intermodal means taking from trucks, putting them on trains. 4 trains a week could take 1 million tons to Columbia River.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Mr. Olson, just clarifying the Columbia River landfill ownership.
Ownership?
Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Mellinger is number 39 and next with Ms. Foster, 41 on deck.
Good evening. I would like to talk about what nearby means in the context of this application of a large dump like Coffin Butte. Republic Services drew a rectangle on a map and said that and analyzed that as the nearby area for this dump. That rectangle is less than 10 miles in width. So with the dump in the center, it's less than 5 miles to the edge of this rectangle. The airborne plume that the dump generates with all of its PFAS and other toxins in it will extend for many miles in whatever direction the wind is blowing, far beyond the 5-mile distance or less than 5-mile distance of their rectangle that Republic Services considered nearby. I think that's a grievous error to only look within a rectangle drawn on a map to analyze the impacts of this dump. Also, the leachate from the dump and the trucking to the Corvallis treatment center also get into the Willamette River because there's no effective way to get the toxins out of it. Trucking it to Corvallis's treatment plant isn't going to solve the problem. Once that gets into the river, it impacts fish and all kinds of wildlife downstream. So that nearby in this context should include the Willamette River everywhere downstream from the Corvallis treatment plant all the way to the Columbia and out to the oceans, because that's where the toxins from this dump will go. Also, I would, in my in my capacity as co-president of the Mid-Willamette Bird Alliance, formerly Audubon Society of Corvallis, I'd like to talk about the character of the area, including its wildlife. Not long after I moved to this area in 1999, I went up to Coffin Butte to see the great blue heron rookery, which was well known in the birding community. Sure enough, it was an impressive sight to see all those huge gangly birds nesting up in the trees there. The herons aren't there anymore. They left in 2022. The Republic Service's wildlife person pointed out that bald eagles were seen by the nest, giving the impression that the herons were pushed out by the eagles. But bald eagles have always been present. I saw them out there way back in the early 2000s when I went out there, and the herons have coexisted with them for decades. The thing that did change in 2022 when the herons left was that Republic Services started some operations nearby on the south side of Coffin Butte Road. It's my understanding that they weren't supposed to do that under their existing permit, but that's what happened. Herons are responsive to human disturbance, and they soon left. Per reports from Mid-Willamette Bird Alliance members, the herons are still in the area and would probably reoccupy their rookery if the disturbance stops. But stopping disturbance is exactly the opposite of what the proposed expansion would do. For these reasons, I urge you to reject the application for expansion of the landfill. Thank you.
Is it Mellinger? Mellinger?
Mellinger.
You referred to, is it the Mid-Willamette
Bird Alliance.
Bird Alliance? You also referred to their reporting of the herons leaving in 2022.
Members of our alliance.
Have you included a reference to that in any documents that have you submitted that testimony?
I have not yet.
Okay.
It's my understanding that I still can. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will do that if it would
Thank
help.
you for your testimony.
All right.
Mr. Mellinger, a quick question. There was a gentleman here, I think it was on Tuesday, that talked about the great blue heron moving across the street. In your society that you work with, have you seen them?
I have not seen them over there. I've gone out to look for them. I heard of that too. I've gone out to look for them. I haven't seen them. I have seen them flying around the area. I haven't seen a rookery over there. I would believe that person because he's a really good birder.
Sure.
But I haven't personally seen them there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mellinger, could you also comment on a rookery? Numbers of birds? What might we experience in that space and what's missing?
Let's see. I remember something like 20 to 30 nests up in the trees. That's a rough guess from just going off 20-year-old.
And is that an approximate definition of a rookery for those of us that aren't avid birders?
Great blue heron rookeries range from like 5 to over 100 nests. Up along the Columbia, they co-nest with bald eagles nearby. So the eagles really aren't the problem here. But yeah, the rookery is just a collection of heron nests. And herons, despite being wading birds, and you think of them as being in the water, they actually nest way up in the trees.
Thank you.
Additional question. Thank you, Mr. Mellinger. The question I have is the presentation when you had, I think it was Miss Davis on the opening night, talked about the eagles chasing away the great blue herons and more or less the younger eagles basically messing with their nest. You're saying they live together?
In rookeries up by the Columbia River, they do nest adjacent to each other. And she pointed out that the eagles were seen around the nest after the herons had left. And I don't know how the interaction happens. It's possible that a rookery with enough herons is completely capable of keeping bald eagles away from their nests if they're nesting together in numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mellinger. Appreciate it. Ms. Foster, number 41, is up with Ms. Vega, number 42, being next. So you may go at number 41, given that you have Ms. Foster's time. Well, we're at 41, so if you're prepared, why don't we go ahead and please let us know whose time you will be using. Do you happen to know Mr. Foster's number, just so we can keep, or Ms.
41.
Boulder, do you have it?
41.
Thank you.
My name is Robert James Orton. I live at 2435 Salem Avenue, Southeast Albany, Oregon. I'm a journeyman grade mechanic, previously employed at Coffin Butte up on top as a mechanic. As a mechanic, I deal in logic and analytics. That's how I think. That's how I operate every day. I have an inside look at Republic Services. 1 week after presenting video to the Benton County Commissioners of active methane leaks on the working face where people work, 1 week after that, I was fired by local management. I had been working within the company through the company's aware line because nothing, no amount of asking these people for safety measures, no amount of asking these people to correct the wrongs that we're doing up there. Let me give you a quick example. Pressure washing equipment off the liner down in the shop area that they're currently dumping on now. They would not pressure wash the equipment up on top per company policy. They would bring the equipment down out of the trash, dragging all of that down to the shop in an unlined area. They would have us pressure wash it there. Pressure washing it on the top would create leche water that Republic would have to pay to be treated. So rather than that, they contaminated a whole area offliner knowingly. However, Knife River was not aware of this. I watched hundreds of thousands of gallons of leche runoff water run down the back through the area at the swap, sweep all of the contaminants, all of the hydraulic fluid, all of the belly pan material off the side down into Knife River's area. Knife River was collecting that water in ponds, sucking it out of the ponds into their truck and using it to wash the road. This is no slight on Knife River. They had no idea that that was happening. However, local management was fully aware that that was happening. Not only was local management aware, but through reaching out to the company's aware line, I was put in touch with Rebecca Grieving, senior HR for field operations, auspiciously so she could investigate the hostile work environment, the retaliation and the intimidation that I was suffering from bringing this up. And not only me, but other people. We were in the midst of unionizing at the time because of safety issues. However, the hanging point on that was health insurance. The company did not want us to have health insurance, which would have saved them $40,000 a year because then we would be able to go to the doctor and treat the illnesses and whatnot associated with this. Briefly on the fire, Republic Services says they have a 4,000-gallon fire truck at their disposal. Certainly, that fire truck will not pass certification on any standard, on any fire line, but they have it available. Fires regularly happen up there at the dump. Equipment catches on fire all the time. Maintenance is not happening by the operators. Trash will pack up, particularly in the D9 dozers along the right side where the turbo is located. It will pack up around the turbo and the exhaust lines there. That will begin to smolder. It is not uncommon to come in the morning and a piece of equipment to be discovered that it sat there and smoldered all night until the morning. Then you have to rehose, do all the soft parts on it. None of these things are reported. None of these things are reported. They aren't even noted in the maintenance record as equipment downtime or damage. But the records exist for the repairs. Every month, Republic Services would come through and inspect the shop on their checklist. Every month, deficiency. We had no hand washing station. We had no decontamination facilities. That was a quarter mile away. Again, reaching out to Rebecca Grieving, I sought relief. This was someone outside. This was the company set up to address these issues. 3.5 months of investigating this resulted in nothing except Rebecca Grieving sharing my concerns first when the case was assigned to her before she even spoke with me. She spoke to the managers who I had said were creating a hostile work environment. A bit about Republic Services' character and also what you're not hearing. And I will give you 2 things that require no more than a 10-second sentence or 2 in their rebuttal. And this is what you don't hear. Republic Services is moving their tippers around to artificially enlarge the working face on top of the mountain. The working face is exempt from methane testing. It is a bitch to move those tippers. Takes a lot of room, a lot of space, but that exempts a larger area from the methane testing. Now, not too long ago, operations manager Jeremy Stone, the crew was working late moving the tippers because the methane covering that up is the important issue. And Jeremy Stone, via text message, instructed the operators up on the hill to go ahead and not tarp, which is a daily requirement. That is their operations manager. Another one recently, PRC, the mulch plant. If you go by there, you see large piles of material that isn't going anywhere. Since Scott Mills canceled their contract with Republic due to the material being contaminated with glass, it's just sitting back there piling up. That's a fire waiting to happen. But they do have access to that 4,000-gallon water tank. A piece of material fell and crushed the cab on a piece of equipment. The operator, terrified. This is what we call in the industry is not a near miss. This is a near fatality. The operator was concerned he was injured. The manager at PRC instructed the employee to pull down his pants and expose the area where he thought he was injured. Employee did that under duress. Under duress, he did that. And later in the day, he decided something, might really be wrong. Went up to that same manager, said, I would like the number to call the nurse line so I can get this addressed. The manager refused to give him the number because doing so would mean he had to write a report. Now, January of last year, in an email Brett Davis sent to me, he stated that all of the recommendations of the EPA per their discovery of methane leaks had been addressed. As we know from the EPA, those things were never mentioned. Therefore, they could not be addressed. I would say that that constitutes a lie in this situation. And as it overlaps with this issue here, I would say that that's impeachable, his testimony regarding this issue.
Very much appreciate your comments, and they have been entered into the record. So we appreciate your time and opportunity to hear you.
Outstanding. I appreciate it.
Mr. Orton, I do have a question, clarifying question.
Yes, ma'am.
You referred to a number of safety violations.
Let me give you one right off.
I'm not sure I can, but I can ask this. I'm not sure that you can extend your testimony unless I'm wrong.
That's correct.
Okay. My question is, you stated, I believe, that these safety issues have not been, they're not recorded, not reported, and I'm kind of
Yes, ma'am.
paraphrasing.
That's how they avoid, because that way when it happens the first time and somebody is killed, then it is quote unquote the first time. There's no accident analysis. There's no what happened, why it happened, how it that. There never has been. And the last year that I worked there, I believe, 3 fatalities at Republic Services. And no one could give us an accident analysis. What happened, how it happened, why it happened. When these things come up, it's suddenly the first thing. But they exist every day out there for the people. Every day out there, that methane extraction system, which is broken and beyond repair, which I am fully happy to testify to and the reasons why, it can't be repaired. They don't have enough material to put on top to suppress the methane. What they are asking for is not a new dump. They're asking for an open pit mine so they can generate their own top cover material to cover the trash, because currently they do not have enough to cover material. Knife River was producing the material for them.
Mr. Orton, if I could go back to my question, thank
ma'am.
you. I'm curious, are there OSHA violations or reports that would be recorded for some of the things that you're talking about? Are there
yes.
otherwise agencies?
Yes, ma'am. And they were cited and violated for those. However, time-stamped, geo-stamped videos, audio recordings, etc., will demonstrate that what was told to DEQ by local management was not what was happening. So essentially, Republic lied about the extent of what was going on and how it happened. And we knew when DEQ was coming out. 2 weeks beforehand, we knew when DEQ was coming out. And then suddenly, local management would put the rush on us.
Excuse me, Chair Fowler, and could I ask the person testifying to please direct your comments to the Planning Commission?
Okay,
and not to members of the audience. Thank you.
My apologies, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I just ask one, sorry, I had a question. Oh, you mentioned 3 fatalities. Is that 3 fatalities at this location?
No, ma'am, this was company-wide, but
Okay.
per company
you.
policy, there's supposed to be a stand down. When there's a death, there's supposed to be, the accident was supposed to be analyzed, material was supposed to be produced, and this was supposed to be disseminated via the operations officer, who is Jeremy Stone. Jeremy Stone is the operations manager. At no point in time do they do this. Let me give you another example.
We need to.
My apologies.
Yeah,
My
thank you
apologies.
very much,
Thank
Mr.
you, Mr.
Orton.
Orton. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Next is Ms. Vega, who I understand has ceded her time to number 60, Ms. Harris. And I believe Ms. Harris is going to be offering her comments online. And could you begin, Ms. Harris, by enumerating if there are other people in addition to Ms. Vega whose time you are using? 60.
Yes, good evening, Chair Fowler. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So I am Kate Harris. I'm Kate Harris, number 60. I've been seated time beginning with Robin Vega, number 42. Lillian Harris, number 62. Marcus Harris, number 61. And Elizabeth Patt, number 73. As submitted to the as submitted to in the chat.
Appropriate time set up. We're all set. Thank you. Please feel free.
I'm sorry, the lag in it. I think I missed the name.
It's submitted in the chat if that's easier. Shall I begin or are we?
Yes, are we set, Ms. Boulder?
Yeah, she named Marcus Harris, and I didn't have him as. Maybe that changed.
I put it into the chat and had a confirmation in the chat that he's going to be going to bed before his time slot.
Right, we're good.
Is that a confirmed 15 minutes, just so I don't? Okay, thank you. Chair Fowler, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Major Kate Harris, a former Air Force evaluator pilot with a degree in civil engineering, a master's in public administration, formerly on a hospital board of directors, and most importantly, the mother to 3 young children who were present at your Tuesday hearing, and I live at 37268 Moss Rock Drive, Corvallis. I'm here today in strong opposition of the Coffin Butte Landfill expansion and to demonstrate that any expansion will impose an undue burden on services available to the area per Benton County Code 53.215. I will be discussing 4 topics: the burden of truth, spin doctors, the burden of safety, and the people's burden. You've already heard or read arguments discussing burden placed on transportation, the health and livability of the air and water sources, usability of the area for recreation, as well as others. Tonight, I will be discussing the primary burden that the current expansion is placing on services available to the area, namely the requirement of thousands of citizen and county staff hours, which have been dedicated to interpreting Republic's application to determine what is true, what has been omitted, and what is deceitful. The complexity of this operation and application have completely overwhelmed the capacity of Benton County's own staff. Despite the very kind and thoughtful members on staff, technology and communication problems have been present throughout this process, continuing even to several emails I received coordinating this slot to speak. It is no wonder that the county has not been able to enforce prior conditions of approval if they can't even manage the technology and communication requirements it takes to consider such a complex application for such complex operations. Inga Williams, in her former role as County Associate Planner, stated in an email that she could not include Coffin Butte Landfill in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan because she did not have the knowledge to do so. Within the staff report for this application, there are numerous cases where the staff states it does not have the capacity to evaluate certain details and therefore can provide no additional comment on that section. Given this, how can you expect the staff to have the capacity to ascertain what parts of the application are accurate, omitted, or deceitful? One example of the need to determine the truth is from the applicant's Fire risk assessment update from September 24 in the application, page 3. In reference to the garbage and hydraulic lifter fire on May 18th, 2024, quote, "A Dare fire was on standby at the site, but not needed to actively engage in the fire," end quote. This is outright false, as pictures from that event clearly show 2 simultaneous water streams being applied to the tippers by a Dare volunteer firefighters. These pictures have been available on social media for nearly a year, not hidden on somebody's phone. Another example, referencing the 1999 fire, the risk assessment states, quote, "On-site staff was joined by the local fire department, a Dare fire, which assisted to extinguish the fire after several hours," end quote. Whereas the Associated Press and personnel reports discuss this fire burning for more than 24 hours. Per Webster's dictionary, referenced by Mr. Kleinman, several is defined as, quote, "more than 2, but fewer than many," end quote. In this case, it is deceitful for the applicant to claim that the 1999 fire was, quote, extinguished after several hours," end quote. Approving this application places an undue burden on the entire county until you, the Planning Commission, can ascertain what components are accurate, what have been omitted, or are deceitful, whether intentionally or not. It is also impossible to determine the level of undue burdens that will be imposed by the actual expansion if the application does not include full truths. If the truth of this application is in such question, what are we left to believe about the reports of the ongoing operations of this landfill as Republic's supposedly most profitable landfill? In just one area of operations, methane leaks, we are still waiting to see what the EPA has to say on the reliability of Republic's self-reported information. Which brings me to spin doctors. I would like to introduce you to 2 people from Republic Services, key players on their team, Ginger Richardson, sometimes appearing as Ginger Ruff, and Russ Knock. They're on a special team at Republic Services, Information Control. The common term is spin doctors. Commissioner Biscoe may remember them from Trash Talks work group. Ginger Richardson participated throughout BCTT, and Russ Knock appeared from time to time. Commissioners, we will introduce into evidence at least one document from that time showing the spin doctors at work. What happened was, a member of the subcommittee studying landfill life proposed the subcommittee's report should include a section on the dump closing early because of environmental violations. The scenario he imagined had to do with excessive methane emissions. Our evidence shows that Ginger Richardson urged BCTT facilitator to strike all evidence of that idea from the BCTT record to make it appear as if it had never been said. We did not know at the time that the EPA had already begun its investigation of Coffin Butte Landfill for excessive methane emissions. Republic successfully hid that event from everyone for over a year until reporter Tracy Lowe broke the story in the Salem Statesman Journal in the fall of 2023. She found out by using the Freedom of Information Act. We will enter all of Tracy Lowe's reporting into the record. You may note that Ginger Richardson's name appears here and there in Republic's application. You may not realize that her presence shows itself nearly everywhere in Republic's communications. We will introduce evidence detailing how the company's communications have been crafted to spin the facts and obscure the truth. I think that evidence will go on, but we urge you to read it all. Tonight, my time is limited, so I'll point out 2 examples. First, this statement from the application that the dump has, quote, 3 times the industry standard, end quote, of wells extracting landfill gas. This is brought forward as a proud achievement. Commissioners, it is anything but. Here's how the regulatory system works. If a landfill finds a methane leak, the operators have 10 days to remediate that leak. That is, they try to fix it and test again in 10 days. If they have not fixed it, the operators have 30 days to fix it. So they test again in 30 days to see if it is still leaking. If the operators fail to control the leak, the regulations require them to drill a new well right there to try to at least reduce the pressure on that unmitigated leak. Once you know that, then the 30+ gas wells at Coffin Butte Landfill are an unmistakable sign of widespread failure of the dump's gas collection system to stop uncontrolled emissions of landfill gas. And the millions of dollars spent drilling all of those wells is put into proper regulatory context. We will introduce into evidence a detailed breakdown of that failure. My second example is how the life of the landfill is portrayed throughout Republic's communications. Simply put, it's portrayed as if the dump will run at full speed until it's full, as though annual intake volume is a set number out of anyone's control. Commissioners, the annual intake volume is not a set number. It's a dynamic number set entirely by Republic. The truth is, for Benton County residents, the life of disposal service is through the year 2040. That is, we have guaranteed service for 15 more years. That's ironclad. It's in the franchise agreement. And that number has nothing to do actually with the dump. If the dump closes tomorrow, the life of disposal service for Benton County residents is through the year 2040. You can see how it benefits Republic Services to spin the life of the landfill this way. It's so they can constantly raise the specter of the dump filling up and Benton County suddenly having no place to put its garbage. Republic has been relentless on this spin and largely successful at duping the public into thinking there's a crisis of capacity looming. We'll introduce evidence of this spin throughout time. The truth is, Benton County government has done its job, and Benton County residents are legally protected. Republic is really worried about two issues with the dump expansion in particular, the pollutants, methane, and arsenic. As you review the letters submitted in Republic's burden of proof, the half legal, half technical one about methane emissions on page 119, and the definitely technical one about arsenic on page 121, please note that they are not signed by engineers or technical people. They are signed by Ginger Richardson. So, commissioners, when looking at the materials Republic provides to you, especially their upcoming rebuttal to public testimony, please keep in mind who is writing them. My third topic tonight is the burden of safety. As a former combat instructor and evaluator pilot in the Air Force, safety is an absolute priority. We would cancel combat sorties and presidential coverage missions if pre-flight mechanical or personnel safety issues arose. Safety is no joking matter. We worked incredibly hard to build and promote an overarching culture of safety in which all ranks were taught and encouraged to speak up and report any safety concerns that they saw, regardless of mission status, both in the plane and in everyday work. The goal of this was to encourage all of our decisions to be viewed through a safety mindset, with the very real outcome of preventing airplane crashes. It was also to normalize reporting of systemic issues so that we could discuss and remedy them before they led to catastrophic failures. This safety mindset is also applied in hospital systems. Our local hospital system believes so strongly in safety mindset culture that they host daily safety huddles as well as begin formal meetings with a safety moment to discuss something that occurred or nearly occurred to allow everyone to learn from the situation in hopes of preventing future harm. To facilitate this, they recently brought in a safety officer to lead this through the system. The hospital has based their safety culture on best practices from other high-risk industries, most notably aviation, submarines, and nuclear reactors. In such a high-risk operation as landfilling at Coffin Butte, with far-reaching consequences, particularly in which one contains nuclear waste, disposes of leachate in a drinking water resource, and covers nearby communities in unknown gas, I would expect nothing less than ensuring they operate with a comprehensive safety mindset. All of these side effects cause undue burdens on the local services and community, and I will propose that their lack of operating with a safety mindset poses additional undue burdens on local facilities and services. In Republic's Coffin Butte Landfill operating procedures dated April 2013, which is quoted verbatim in Appendix 20 to this application, Fire Risk Assessment, Step 5 of Section 8.1 states, quote, "In case of a fire, the DEQ is notified of the event." And Section 8.2 states, quote, "Emergencies regarding fire or leachate excursions are reported to the DEQ," end quote. From Republic's Coffin Butte safety webpage, quote, "Safety is our top priority and a core value at Republic Services, and it is tied to another core value to be human-centered," end quote. If Republic operated in a safety mindset manner, they would be more than happy to submit all of the documentation of all fires and leachate excursions reported as required to DEQ. Yet when I presented fire safety questions to DSAC last September, Brett Davis could not tell DSAC how many fires they'd had recently, nor did he offer to simply collect all of the DEQ notifications that are submitted per their operations plan. And has there been any follow-up about the most recent leachate excursion as queried by Joel Geyer, like Meyer, to the DEQ over the past few months? It's astonishing to me that we have not seen any evidence of post-event reports or after-action reports from Republic detailing each and every fire they have, what the cause was, how it was handled, and how future fires might be prevented. After-action reports or the like are standard practice in high-risk industries that do indeed operate with safety in mind. Without documentation showing an accurate history of the safety events that have occurred at Coffin Butte and the actions taken by Republic to minimize their future occurrences, the Planning Commission cannot accurately know or determine the extent of undue burden that are placed on local facilities and services by this operation or by any expansion. In addition to these three academic points, I must also include discussion of the people's burden. I, along with so many of my neighbors, have spent countless hours over the past 4 years highlighting the local burdens imposed by this monstrous operation. We have ignored our families, as tonight, gotten kids to bed too late, as of Tuesday, missed work, neglected growing potholes and exploding poison oak groves to focus on not allowing this community burden to grow any larger. Erin Brockovich did not become famous because her fight was short or easy. We would all prefer to get back to tackling our plumes of poison oak and backbreaking pothole filling than drag this on, capture more national attention, or become Brockovich or Flint, Michigan 2.0. My final points of the evening. My 11-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter were brave enough to speak to the State of Oregon House Committee on Climate, Energy, and Environment last week, requesting additional comprehensive methane monitoring for Oregon landfills to help ensure safe air where they live and go to school, adding burden to them missing more school. They both hope to speak tonight, but ceded their time to me since they will likely need to be asleep before their slot time, and we are not allowed to swap their time to earlier. They were going to speak about the burden on their grandparents, who purchased a home in Adair Village in 1974, sold that house, and bought a house on Tampico in 1995, on the south side of the ridge that the expansion is proposed for. And their house utilizes a groundwater well. Based on the 1977 Solid Waste Management Plan, the county expected the landfill to close in 2000. This was confirmed yet again in 1983 and 1994, giving my in-laws expectations that their property purchased closer to Coffin Butte would be a safe financial and health decision. This expansion, if approved, would bring the landfill closer to their property, where they live with my children's young cousins, and closer to the house where my 3 young children are growing up, seriously interfering with the health and safety of all of our family's local property, which we all wish to leave to these future generations. If this landfill continues to expand and operate in an unsafe manner, our families must make hard decisions if we intend to stay in our homes or move to seek healthier locations. Please consider the content of this application carefully and deny it until and unless you can verify its truth and completeness as you evaluate future burdens. Thank you for your time tonight. Any questions?
Ms. Harris, I have just a reference question. You referred to 2 pages early in your testimony. I'm looking at my notes a moment here. Worried about 2 issues as reviewed in Republic Services Burden of Proof document, page X and page 21. Any chance that you can refer back to that? It's early in your testimony. Signed not by tech experts, but by Ginger, I think you said Richardson.
I believe pages 119 and 121.
Very glad I asked. Thank you. And then just for clarification, have you submitted your testimony that you were reading from this evening for the record that we can review in writing?
I have not, and I will submit it.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. Ms. Follett, number 44 is next with Ms. Eichler on deck.
Testimony. Pam Castle's here to help me end it. Okay, and we're going to do our best to stay on time. Okay, so this is the beginning of my testimony. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk. My name is Marcy Follett. I live at 14605 Corvallis Road, which is directly east and 30 degrees north of Coffin Butte. And I believe my personal testimony should weigh in as property adjacent because by DEQ's term, I believe it is function of facility. My property is directly affected by the Coffin Butte landfill. My parents bought the land in 1934. My family's been here ever since that time. So the reason I'm here is not because I really wanted to be. I found a paper in my grandma's stuff that was, it was a flyer handed out at one of the town halls of 1973, 74, or possibly 76. At that time, there were commitments made to the community. There was a promise made. So my purpose was to come here and give, sorry, thank you, was to give my personal testimony, but in watching and observing what's going on here, it's become apparent to me that things are being misrepresented. And so I'd like to make some clarification on those misrepresentations. First one being that Coffin Butte is an active landfill. And that decisions are being made in a rash way. The decision Coffin Butte is not an active landfill. It is a landfill that is due to be capped, at which time it has been committed to the community that the capping of the landfill would result in an environment that's conducive to wildlife, to recreation, picnics, all that kind of stuff. There are many, so it's not a rash decision. If Coffin Butte wasn't going to be a capped landfill, it would not be in existence today. Because the 2-year study made by the Chemeketa Regional Group or National Regional Group for Solid Waste Management, their 2-year study concluded that with the expert of that time, that Coffin Butte, no, it was not Coffin Butte. There were multiple sites in the area that were going to be selected for the landfill. One of those sites was at the end of Independence Monmouth Highway and where it connects with Highway 20. If the wisdom of the people of the community was not adhered to or paid attention to, the landfill would be right there. And I'm sure many of you have seen the floods. Oh my goodness, my time's up. But so in my written testimony, we'll include that the ponds are not there to stop the leachate from going to the river. The wells do not tell you that they're going above and beyond the call of duty. It is evidence that there should never be a landfill in the Willamette Valley, especially in the Coffin Butte area. Geological testimony did not address the possibility of liquefaction in this area, as can happen and has happened in Salem with just a 5-point, I can't quote that, the size of that one. It did not address wildlife. Their wildlife testimony did not address the fact that the hunters here refer to wildlife or the deer as the dump deer because they have spots on their livers. That is evidence. The landfill liners are not safe because the only reason they're used in the industry, as it was stated by Republic Services, they are made with plastic. The only reason they use them is because landfills are assumed to become stable. In our environment, our landfill will not become stable. That is my opinion. I welcome any study. And
So,
yes.
Ms. Follett,
Sorry.
the time has
Yes, it
expired, but
has.
I'll remind you and all folks that the written record remains open.
Yes.
And so if you would like to submit your comments in a written form, we'll have full comments that you.
And it will, yes, sorry. It will also include information as to the other landfills that have failed to be successful, shall we say. And she would have told you that my testimony ended with my grandma died of cancer.
Very, very sorry to hear that, but appreciate your testimony. I think we should take a 10-minute break. And so we will reconvene at 7:50. And the next person will be Ms. Eichler, number 45, with Mr. Schiffer, number 46 on deck. Reconvene at 7:50. It is, so we'd like to resume. If we can have everyone take their seats. And let's see, I believe we are at Mr. Schiffer, number 46. But we were unsure whether Mr. Schiffer has checked in.
Chair, did we do 45 already?
I was told that Ms. Eichler has, for some reason, I've checked her off and I can't now remember why, but I'm confident that it was checked off for a good reason. And I do not see Mr. Schiffer at this point, so we'll move on to Ms. Higbee, number 47, with Ms. Pop on deck.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Great. Let me turn on my. Ooh. Trying to turn on my video. Huh, I guess it's disabled. My video is disabled.
She's ceding her time to Gwendolyn. No, Gwendolyn now. When ceding time to her. Or yeah, sorry, Gwendolyn is ceding her time.
Yes, Gwendolyn number 76 is seated her time.
Thank you. So looks like we've adjusted your time. And if our experience from last evening is correct, your video will pop on in a moment. And so feel free to begin. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Chair Fowler and members of the committee. My name is Deborah, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I represent the Oregon Chapter Sierra Club, 1821 Southeast Ankeny Street, Portland, and our 56,000 statewide members and supporters. We recommend that the Benton County deny Republic Services application for a conditional use permit. There I am. Sorry. To expand Coffin Butte Landfill. We are concerned about the expansion for many reasons, but we'll focus on two: climate change and alternatives to waste creation. Recent reports of large-scale methane leaks at Coffin Butte are of great concern because methane is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And this leakage has led to 2022 and 2024 inspections and recent legal action by the EPA, as well as inquiries by Oregon DEQ. Carbon Mapper has produced images of huge methane gas plumes leaking from Coffin Butte into the surrounding region. Climate change is a threat multiplier that worsens every challenging issue, like fires. The landfill's emissions of methane and the ensuing climate-related temperature rise are likely to lead to a significant increase in fires. This will lead to increased fire hazards and suppression costs and increased fire risk to people. Floods, fires, storms, food shortages, and other unnatural disasters are becoming more frequent and more extreme. We must do everything we can to ensure a safe, livable climate for future generations. Landfilling is the result of a linear economy that takes resources, uses them, and disposes of them. Instead of this throwaway ethic, we need a circular economy that treats waste as a resource. If you allow Coffin Butte to expand, you will be continuing our throwaway society, characterized by overconsumption and the rapid discarding of goods, which presents significant environmental, economic, and social problems. It leads to resource depletion, waste overload, and increased pollution, impacting ecosystems, public health, and the overall quality of life. Other Oregon counties have proactive plans to move towards a circular economy. In Yamhill County, citizens successfully opposed the expansion of their regional landfill and are actively taking steps to meet their zero waste goal. For 10 years, Zero Waste McMinnville has worked on alternatives to waste creation. In addition, Lane County is working toward building an integrated reuse and recycling facility. Metro Portland decided years ago to cut back on waste. One example is they instituted a food waste ban to turn food waste into a resource. Benton County might consider doing what these counties are doing and make meaningful steps towards a circular economy. The first step is to deny the expansion of the landfill. If the landfill is denied expansion, zero waste initiatives might be taken more seriously, like sending food waste to the Pacific Regional Compost Center that's across the street from Coffin Butte, instead of sending it to the landfill. In Corvallis, the Youth Climate Action Now group worked on advocating for a food waste ordinance from 2019 to 2024 in Corvallis. I was one of the lead organizers. We lobbied the Benton County Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Council, the Corvallis City Council, and the Climate Action Advisory Board. The food waste initiative was never adopted. Corvallis has a voluntary food waste program that has been in place for 12 plus years, yet they send most of their food waste to the landfill. If the expansion is denied and a circular economy is taken seriously, we might start seeing waste, like food waste, as a resource. For this and many other reasons, we urge you to deny Republic Services application for a conditional use permit to expand the Coffin Butte Landfill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Higby. Appreciate it. Moving now then to Ms. Pop, number 48. And Mr. Booker, number 50, is on deck.
My name is Marge Pop, and I live at 1435 Southwest Birdie Drive in Corvallis. I want to address three common but misleading arguments presented in favor of landfill expansion. First, proponents highlight the costs and environmental impact of long-distance waste transport by trucks. While it's true that trucking waste over long distances is costly and environmentally damaging, it's also a profitable practice for waste companies. This is why the superior alternative of rail transport is often overlooked. Rail is significantly more fuel efficient than trucks, 3 to 4 times so, with studies indicating a 75% reduction in emissions. Furthermore, it is cost effective, and Corvallis already has a rail connection to the Columbia Ridge landfill in Eastern Oregon, which is owned by Waste Management, which is a factor here. Seattle, a leader in waste management, currently ships its waste 257 miles by rail to a Columbia Ridge, and that's further than the distance to Corvallis. Second, not all landfills are equal, as we've talked about earlier. The environmental impact of a landfill is significantly influenced by its location. Coffin Butte's location worsens its impact due to local weather and geology. In contrast, landfills in drier Eastern Oregon typically produce less leachate and methane. Perhaps most significantly, they manage leachate on site, while Coffin Butte discharges 40 million gallons annually, most of it into our Willamette River. Finally, the accusation of NIMBYism directed at those opposing expansion is a mischaracterization. I live in Southwest Corvallis and am not directly affected by the immediate odor, noise, or traffic of the landfill. My opposition stems from deeply held values and concerns for our planet. Because of the unsuitable location and the operator's lax management practices, this landfill disproportionately impacts planetary health. This expansion is not merely a local concern. It affects our entire county and the global environment. This is a moral imperative, not just an economic consideration. We are stewards of this land, and it is our duty to protect our community for ourselves, our neighbors, and future generations, not maximize profits for a private waste company. Do the right thing. Protect our values, protect our environment, protect Benton County, deny the Coffin Butte landfill expansion. Thank you.
Ms. Pop, I'd like to ask a question, a clarifying question. You said there's already a rail connection between Corvallis or Coffin
Yes.
Butte and Columbia. Could you?
Okay, so what I said was that there's a railroad connection between Corvallis and Columbia Ridge. And that's just standard railroad transport. You can look at the DOT map of railroads in Oregon and see that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pop. Mr. Booker, number 50, and then Mr. Warburton, number 53. Do we have confirmation from Mr. Booker? They're not online. Oh, thank you for that clarification. I Do not see Mr. Booker currently, so we'll move to Ms. Whitcomb, number 54.
I'm doing this OG stuff. Doesn't slip off. Oh, it is gonna slip off. Oh, no, it's okay. Maybe my assistant can take them off. All right. Is it go time? All right. My name is Nancy Whitcomb. I am a retired architect and I was a planning commissioner for a decade. The applicant's consultant studies are based on current impacts. But projected impacts will increase by 120%, 135%, and 168% of current impacts. So in my opinion, the consultant's studies produced by the applicant are flawed. But even if you accept the applicant's hypotheses and constrained definition of adjacent impacts, there are 4 sets of properties where impacts will be significantly adverse from the point of view of developing parcels as the zoning allows. These are those 4 parcels. I believe they're all in the adjacency that was submitted with the application. This is going to be the first parcels are North Tampico that would have the landfill in their view shed, which would constrain even design decisions like window placement or ADU siting. As you can see here, these parcels, their view is only screened by trees that are on their own properties. Oh, and those are 35 parcels. Then there are parcels on South Tampico. The 1994 expansion was denied after a home buyer learned of the expansion and backed out of the sale of a house that he was purporting to buy. There are 45 parcels in this area that might all be affected by this. I think it's to be agreed that if you can't sell your house, that's a significantly adverse impact. And that has already happened in 1994. Then there are 230 acres of currently undeveloped RR10 parcels in 4 parcels at the top of Tampico Ridge. I believe that the development potential of those parcels would be extremely difficult, verging on impossible if this expansion, so-called new landfill, is approved. And that will be 23 potential new home sites. There are the 4 forest conservation parcels to the west of the 59-acre parcel and the 1 83.7-acre parcel to the south of the 59-acre parcel. I believe that development of those parcels would be impossible if this is approved, because they faced 150-foot tall wall of garbage on their property line. And we are land use planners, but our plans are out of date. But we have 12 years to update the comp plan, the solid waste management plan, and chapter 77. Republic expands landfills. That's what they do. And I'm sure they have a contingency plan in place if you deny this application. I believe the contingency will involve reducing volume inputs by increasing tipping fees, which may actually result in a win-win for Benton County of lower volumes and longer existing landfill life if this application is denied. Thank you.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Thank you for your testimony. Are you submitting those posters to the public record?
I have gotten special permission to submit these after I go home and change the font.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitcomb. Mr. Netfield, number 55. With Mr. or Ms. Bradley, number 57 next.
Hello, my name is Paul Neatfeld. I live at 37049 Moss Rock Drive. I'm a retired engineer and was a member of the A1 subcommittee of the BCTT work group, which addressed landfill size, capacity, and longevity. I'd like to discuss two facts that may be helpful as background and context for your decision on this application. Fact number one, expansion of the Coffin Butte landfill is already underway. This image is from page 3 of the applicant's presentation of May 1st. Note the detailed definition of the various landfill cells in the existing landfill area, but no indication of the new current cell, cell 6. This large blue area here is the location of cell 6. It's identified in the drawing as 4A. It actually is the site of cell 6, the largest cell to date by far in this landfill at approximately 14 million cubic yards, more than 50% the size of all waste placed in this landfill since its inception, approximately 80 years. The filling of cell 6 began this year with no evident permit, no site plan review, no review or decision by this planning commission, and no conditions. This is the landfill expansion that is already underway. Specifically relevant to this application, the structure of cell 6 is very similar to the proposed expansion cell on parcel 1107. A cavity excavated into the hillside, basalt hillside, with a sharp, steep exposed face, and incursion below ground level reaching into or near the water table. This structure creates significant concerns about the potential for groundwater contamination. I believe there's high risk in proceeding with LU 24027 expansion in parallel with cell 6 before the cell 6 harms and burdens are known. Two, that I think everybody here understands, but I'd like to give some background. A vote to approve this CUP is a vote to remove the intake cap. To help understand why this is a concern, here is a plot of the landfill intake volume over the past 32 years. The red line up here represents the intake cap defined in Section 5B of the 2020 Landfill Franchise Agreement, which has been entered into evidence. The dramatic increase in intake volume in the year 2017 corresponds to the diversion of waste from the Riverbend landfill to Coffin Butte. The 2017 intake jump represented a 70% year-over-year increase that demonstrates the ramp-up capability of this landfill operation. From 2017 to the present, it is clear there's high demand for the landfill volume, but per the operator's reported figures, so far it appears that the contractual intake cap appears to be honored. The recent closure of the ReWorld facility, however, will likely add to this demand, and the applicant's own drawing set submitted as part of this application appears to state an expected intake of roughly 1.28 to 1.5 million tons per year. No intake limit means no limit on harms and burdens. Because of this application should be denied. Thank you.
Mr. Neatfeld, I have a question, please. You referenced cell 6. Concerns about, I think you said no apparent permits, no site plan review, and the landfill expansion is already underway. I wonder if you could comment on the no apparent permit part of your statement and the no site plan review for those that may not understand what a site plan review is.
This was a highly discussed, highly debated topic in BCTT. The landfill operator understandably took the position that because a broad swath of land had been approved as a landfill site zone, that individual cells were permitted. And as I understand it, Benton County has essentially acquiesced to that point of view because the beginning of cell 6 is already underway. The filling of cell 6 is already underway. To the best of my knowledge, and we ask about this in BCTT. We asked the county to produce the permit for that expansion part of the landfill, and no permit was found. I see no record of it ever coming before the Planning Commission. I see no site review record in the history of Benton County as far as the landfill goes. And so this was, as far as I can tell, essentially an unsupervised extension of the landfill.
Clarity on that site plan review. Is that what you said? Site plan, yeah. What is that?
That is an annual review, which is expected to be taking place for landfill site operations.
And the review is done by?
I do not know the details, but what I can do to clarify that is enter into the record the piece of Benton County code that specifies that, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bradley, number 57, with Ms. Walenza, number 58 on deck.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Erin Bradley. I've lived at 38578 Highway 99W, Corvallis, since 2005. We border the proposed expansion on two borders, which backs up to Republic's forest land. We are just south of the Coffin Butte Road on Highway 99W, east of Tampico Ridge. Real close neighbors. The map in the application paints an inaccurate picture. We border the forest land to the north, not a 10-acre lot. In the last 5 years, there's been a huge difference in the amount of Republic's noise, odor, operation outside of business hours, and pollution. July 24th, 2024, at 1:05 p.m., we had trash rain down on us, plastic bags and other debris. Later that evening, 7:51 p.m., we heard the Adair Village siren and watched the fire trucks pass by. I turned on the public scanner and the fire department mentioned they could not get the locked gate open. This delayed their response to the fire. The fire location was right next to the burn-off stack and right next to the propane tanks. Republic's unmaintained forest or landfill could have caught fire. My family almost had to evacuate with 11 head of livestock with no notice. Our livestock serves many groups and volunteers in Lynn, Lane, and Benton County. OSU volunteer groups include the Pre-Veterinary Medicine Club, Dressage Club, Stock Horse Club, and the Hunter Jumper Team members. Other groups we serve are Benco, Home Life, Parks and Rec Youth Volunteer Corps, foster children, and disabled adults and children with a wide range of diagnoses. The metallic pounding, the backup beepers, the horns have all been a great distraction. Trees that were meant to bump for sound no longer are adequate. It has been a big interruption and a trigger for some. My children are involved in 3 livestock clubs in 4-H. Cattle, horse, and goats. We host 2 pre-fair practices yearly. My daughter has to walk the pastures multiple times daily to look for plastic bags and debris her calf or our livestock could ingest. I have seen trash out of Republic's trucks fly on 99 and into our pasture. This can be fatal to livestock. The proposed expansion could cause additional stress and health issues, which could result in death of our animals. The landfill has already affected the enjoyment and use of our land. If the land use application is approved, this would make our land unusable, possibly have our wells affected, which would not allow us to keep livestock, and we would not be able to find a replacement due to the loss of land value. I testify on behalf of my family and those who might normally not have a voice in Benton County. Thank you.
Clarification, could you, again, the date, July 24, I think you said?
Yes, for both the fire and the trash.
And 2024?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Ms. Walenza, number 58, with Mr. Kanaga, number 63 on deck.
Dear Commissioners, I live at 1415 Northwest Greenwood Place, about 8 miles from the landfill. I oppose the landfill's expansion. Clean air and water are precious, vital resources for all of us in this community. Feeling of safety and comfort on our roads is also a precious resource. The landfill expansion, if approved, weighs on these common resources to a great extent and over an extended period of time, affecting future generations. This post-war landfill is in a very wet part of a wet valley. Adair Village gets 51 inches of rain on average per year. In Arlington, the average annual rainfall is about 8.85 inches. There's a strong link between wet conditions and methane production in landfills. Every drop of water that splashes on an open landfill cell will slowly trickle through the trash, forming into a concentrated liquid waste known as leachate. Moisture encourages bacterial decomposition, and that's the primary process for methane generation, and billowing tarps, tears, and odors indicate the release of methane and landfill gases, which contain also PFAS. Researchers have detected unexpectedly high levels of PFAS in landfill gas, adding to a growing body of evidence on how forever chemicals leave waste sites. According to an EPA study, PFAS could be escaping landfills via gas at concentrations similar to, if not higher, than liquid leachate. The Coffin Butte owners and operators have not been good stewards in our county and have not been good partners. There are many incidences of rule breaking and mishandling of the great confidence placed in them. Coffin Butte is not a resource to us. As one proponent stated, rather, it's a gigantic liability and a source of real health and environmental problems and concerns. The odor and noise are just the tip of the iceberg. In my backyard, about 8 miles from the landfill, my grandchildren and I can smell the acrid, pungent odor there on some days. Often those days are humid mornings, in my recollection. The landfill expansion would further impinge upon our right to the precious natural resources of clean air and water. There are unknown consequences to all of us of leachate that percolates into groundwater and finds its way into the Willamette River as dilute leachate or bursts into the atmosphere along with landfill gases. Those PFAS or forever chemicals are percolating into our lungs, our land, and our natural environments. Please oppose this expansion. Thank you for your diligence.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lewenza. Mr. Kanaga, I'm sure I am mispronouncing that name, and my apologies. Kanaga. And Mr. Holdorf, number 60, or Ms. Holdorf, number 64 next.
So I have time ceded to me from Art Spiller, number 66, and Dale Drager, number 71, and I'm number 63. Okay, thank you. My name is Kevin Kaniga, 37461 Soap Creek Road, North Benton County. Good evening, Chair Fowler and members of the committee. I thank you for your volunteer service. I oppose LU 24-027, referencing Benton County Code 53.205 and 53.215. Due to the increasing changes to the character of the area and the increasing undue burden placed on Benton County and planet Earth, largely due to Republic Services mismanagement. I planned to give you handouts, but I was told that I could not. Deck 1 images shows the landfill exposed area for 7 days. That satellite data are available for the last 5 years. So of 7 images, Republic Services was out of compliance on 6 of the days available for an 86% non-compliance rate. By exceeding the agreed upon exposed area, Republic Services can take in more trash because they have a larger working area for tippers and trucks to dump trash. This larger exposed area releases more methane, odors, and toxins into our environment. Methane oxidation in landfills is a natural process where methane gas, a byproduct of decomposition, is converted into carbon dioxide in water by bacteria within landfill cover soil. That is, if soil is used as a daily cover. Federal rules require 6 inches of soil as daily cover, but Oregon DEQ has issued Republic Services an alternative daily cover permit, which is why we see tarps. Tarps do not trigger methane oxidation, yet DEQ issued this permit. By operating under this permit, Republic Services is putting an undue burden on Benton County and planet Earth. Concerns also extend to the use of Covanta Reworld incinerator ash that had previously been used as an alternative daily cover. The 2024 publication in the journal Environmental Monitoring and Assessment was submitted in written testimony. It documents signature heavy metal contaminants found in the moss around Covanta Reworld incinerator. The researchers are working towards the publication of the companion study focused on Coffin Butte Landfill, expected out sometime this year. Benton County Talks Trash found that there has never, ever been any enforcement of prior conditions of approval at Coffin Butte Landfill. You heard Petra Sheets state that Benton County does not have staff to enforce conditions of approval. So any conditions of approval, just as in the past, would mean nothing. The situation with DEQ is very similar. DEQ does one annual inspection at Coffin Butte Landfill. DEQ makes an appointment to visit the landfill. Republic Services gets the dump all cleaned up for the inspection. These are like realtor open houses. Having called DEQ several times over the years, I have never been able to get them to make an unannounced site visit. On one occasion, I sent numerous photos covering a period of several months, showing that daily cover and/or alternative daily cover was minimal or non-existent. DEQ received one photo from Republic Services that daily cover had been applied on one, yes, just on one day. Then DEQ considered the case closed without any penalty imposed. So much for DEQ enforcement. In deck 3 that I had to show you that this is Coffin Butte Landfill in the 1800s. This is the family that farmed the land. Coffin Butte was not always a landfill. This is what they should be returning to this to. We'll see what happens. Republic Services could quickly double the life expectancy of the existing landfill. Yes, double it by simply returning to the pre-2017 annual tonnage. But no, this corporation is putting profits over people and planet Earth. If Republic Services did reduce the annual tonnage, they would be lessening the change to the character of the area and would be reducing the existing undue burden on Benton County. Having one blighted slope has already changed the character of the area. And now with this expansion application, Republic Services is asking to blight yet another slope, which would further degrade the character of Soap Creek Valley area while continuing to place an undue burden on Benton County and planet Earth. This is an unacceptable request. Prior to Republic Services' ownership of the Coffin Butte landfill, an expansion application was proposed in the 80s and was shot down by Benton County residents. An expansion application submitted in the 90s was denied. Then under the ownership of Republic Services, an application was submitted in 2021. And in 2022, this application was denied by the Benton County Planning Commission. These landfill expansion applications have become a generational issue, and we need to make sure that future generations don't have to go through this undue burden. This application and the 2021 application have put an undue burden on Benton County, the Benton County staff, where there appears to be a complete turnover in the planning department, largely due to the 2021 application, and also on the residents of Benton County. Comparing Republic Services expansion application to a landlord-tenant agreement, or maybe more likely for all of us, to the experience of an overnight house guest, one that you wouldn't invite back. How did we get here? I find it more than troubling that our county council has never taken any action, enforcement, not even once, of the past conditions of approval. Non-enforcement of all previous conditions of approval is documented in Benton County Talks Trash, in which County Council participated and acknowledged. County Council has the right to enforce conditions of approval and has chosen not to. Lastly, with all the health concerns associated with landfills, it's very disturbing that our Benton County Health Department has been allowed to decline from making testimony. How can this be when landfills are known to create an undue burden on our health and our environment? Republic Services has not been a good tenant nor a good neighbor. Yet here they are asking to stay 6 more years. I ask you, our Planning Commission, to deny this application. Thank you for the time.
Mr. Kanega, I would like to ask a question about, you stated the Benton County Health Department, I think you said has declined.
There's nothing. Code says that they should be involved with this process.
Is it possible you can reference that code? Thank you, Mr. Kanega.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kanega. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Holdorf, number 64, with Mr. LeBlanc, number 72 on deck.
I have seated time from Larry LeBlanc, I think number 72. Okay. Good evening. My name is Rose Holdorf. I am the youngest daughter of John and Kathy Holdorf. I live at 38483 Plowshares Road, and I'm one of Republic Services' closest neighbors, as my family shares a property line to the north with Valley Landfills. In 1989, the year I was born, my parents purchased our land from then landfill owners and were assured by the Bunn family that the landfill would never come across the road and that it would likely close in 10 to 15 years. It is with trust in their good faith that my mom and dad built our family's 3,900 square foot home and adjacent barn and wood shop, where I currently live with my mom and my partner. I have 3 older siblings who also grew up here and frequently visit with their children. I am speaking today because I strongly oppose Republic Services' conditional use permit application to expand the Coffin Butte landfill, and I ask you to deny this application. In recent years, my mom has reflected on how much our relationship with the landfill has changed since the early days of my family's life here. She told me how Dan Bunn's son would visit us, offer to test our water, and ask how they could be better neighbors. In the 90s, my dad rented part of the landfill's property to graze our cattle for a generous deal of $1 a year. In springtime, the south side of Coffin Butte would often be covered by wildflowers planted by the landfill operators at the time. poppies, red clover, and lupin. These days, we have rarely received personal contact from our public services. They do not reach out, and we do not know them. We pay for our own water testing, and there are few wildflowers left on the landfill slope, below the mountain of ever-present black plastic and frequently uncovered trash. It is horrifying to consider what might come if Republic Services is allowed to expand a landfill site onto Tampico Ridge, the ridge that shares the same forest, bedrock, and water table as my home. In the past several years, as Republic has distinctly ramped up business, the existing landfill has drastically changed the character of my neighborhood. It is a more prominent eyesore on my drive home. I am often picking up flyaway trash from our property on evening walks. It smells worse and more frequently now than I ever remember. And for the first time in my life, I can actually see the landfill from my living room window. The lights from the top of the dump glare through the trees, and the truck motors and beeping backup noises echo through my window early in the morning. The proposed expansion could devastate the assets my family has built on this land. The thought of a new landfill cell on our side of Coffin Butte Road keeps me lying awake at night. After 36 years, will we have to move? Will we lose all property value of the house, barn, and 60 acres? Will our well water become contaminated and undrinkable or dry up altogether? Will living here make us sick? How will the excavation of the cell, digging deep into our shared hillside, affect the literal foundation from which my family's life in the Soap Creek Valley was built? In my adult years, every choice I have made, which jobs I choose, how I spend my free time, how I envision my life ahead of me, has come down to a central question. How can I continue to steward and thrive in the place where I am from? When my dad died in 2013, I made the decision to move home to help protect our family's future in the irreplaceable, handcrafted house my dad built, and to make sure my mom could stay in the home where she raised 4 children. I love where I live and feel so lucky to reside in a house and tend to the land that my family has nourished for my whole life. I look forward to taking care of this place and making it even better for generations to come. I hope Benton County will do its part and envision a future for our community that is sustained by clean air, drinkable water, and solutions to our waste that prioritizes its residents' health and well-being. Please reject this application and help protect the health and future of Benton County and my lifelong home. Members of the Planning Commission and Chair Fowler, thank you for your thoughtful, critical, and dedicated time through this hearing process. I have witnessed your sincere efforts as part of these hearings, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Holdorf. Number 73, Ms. Pat. She ceded time already? Thank you. I didn't keep my records to date. Number 74, Ms. Johnson. She seated as well?
From last meeting.
Thank you. Number 78, Mr. Bisco. You've withdrawn. Thank you. Now, if my records may not be complete, but I want to have one final call for Mr. Monroe, 28. Okay. And '72 and '75, I have them checked off for some reason. They seeded. Okay, 72 and 75 have, and there was one other that I do not have checked off, which is Mr. Schiffer, number 46. Not appearing. So that is my list. Did I miss anyone that has signed up? Well, we very much appreciate the public testimony. And I would suggest we'll take another 10-minute break. And that will provide the applicant a few moments to get their thoughts together. And when we come back, it will be the applicant rebuttal. According to my watch, that will be 8:45. 8:45, return for applicant rebuttal. Thank you. Thank you. Will Mr. Condit and the applicant, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Again, this is Jeff Condit, Miller Nash LLP. We're local counsel for Valley Landfills. And first I want to say, and you'll probably all breathe a sigh of relief, we are not going to take too much time tonight. There was a lot of new information and testimony that was submitted into the record over the last 2 nights. Much of it is going to require technical analysis and response, which isn't appropriate to do and is quite frankly impossible to do in verbal rebuttal. So we are, when we get to that long awaited moment where you offer us the ability to extend the record or ask for a continued hearing, that's the point in time in which we will respond to that. But our area vice president, Mark Group, Brian. Sorry, Mark. It is getting late. Wants to make a few just sort of general comments about some points raised during the testimony in opposition. Hopefully it won't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. Brian?
Hey, good evening, Chair Fowler and the rest of the commissioners. Appreciate the time today. And as Jeff said, we'll defer most of our responses with written rebuttal, but we do feel like there are a few items that in the remaining time tonight we could address, and they're less technical in nature, and feel like it would be worthwhile to try to clear these up while we have you. So first is regarding the tonnage cap that's been talked about tonight and in prior nights, and some of the thought process that goes around that. The tonnage cap that was that people have talked about it that were negotiated back in 2020. Obviously, at that time was looking at another 15 years or so of life in the current landfill, plus an extension that at that time was unknown. But if you think about the time frame that we could have been looking at that point in time, it could have been in upwards of 25 to 30 years of life left in the landfill. I think given just the growth in the area, the thought process would have been that just organic growth would have put us at or above the tonnage cap in those out years and unable to service the needs of the customers in the area. So that's the sentiment and the assumptions within around the centers around the tonnage cap. The second item I thought I might talk about that came up a few times over the last couple of nights is the timing of the expansion and potentially why would we need to do that now if we have 10 years left until we might need that airspace. And I think although it may seem like a long time, it really isn't. That time can get eaten up very quickly. First of all, we're not through this process yet, and I imagine that full approval would take some more time beyond this hearing. In addition, as we have proposed a condition of approval for the Coffin Butte Road landfill, Coffin Butte Road, I'm assuming there will be other conditions of approval that come along with this that we will have to comply to. And as such, those types of construction projects take time. And in addition, many of them can't be done in parallel, so they have to be done one for another. So that would take a number of years to get through those conditions of approval and the related projects. In addition, cell design, cell construction, and final DEQ approval can take multiple years before we would able to actually place the first bit of material into that new cell. So, you start to add all that up, and it can quickly get to 8 or 9 years of time to get all that accomplished. And unfortunately, delays and unforeseen circumstances at the landfill aren't measured in days and weeks, are measured in months and years, and any contingency could be eaten up pretty quickly. So we were actually right at the right time to start this process. And then lastly, were some comments and questions, and frankly, I think we could add more clarity around kind of the final height of the proposed expansion and how that compares to a couple of other landmarks in the area. So just to set the stage, Coffin Butte Road sits at approximately 250 feet above sea level. And I would point you to drawing number 11 in our CUP submittal from March 15th that shows that the final fill height of the proposed expansion would be 450 feet above sea level. So that would intimate approximately about a 200-foot rise from Coffin Butte Road to the top of the final fill. Tampico Ridge sits above that at approximately 510 to 570 feet, depending on where you measure from the top of the ridge. So essentially that would be somewhere between, the final fill height would be somewhere between 60 and 120 feet below Tampico Ridge. And then as another data point, the top of the north side of the landfill sits at about 628 feet above sea level. So approximately 180 feet above the final fill height. So I know that there had been some prior questions. Hopefully that clears that up. And again, I would point you to drawing number 11 to reference kind of some of the hard numbers on that. With that, that'll conclude the comments that we had planned for this evening, and would be happy to answer questions.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Lee, go ahead.
Let me clarify the final cover. I guess I'm not sure I have the terminology right, but when the existing landfill on the north side of the road is no longer in use, will its cover condition be the same as it is now, or will it be covered differently?
It will, once there is final capping, it will be covered differently.
When will there be final capping?
That will go in stages, and I don't have the staging and timing of that exact coverage plan. But we can get that for you.
Thank you.
It won't, I can say it won't happen all at once.
Mr. Roop, thank you for providing some clarifying information. I'm going to comment on Commissioner Lee's questions and ask for clarity. So the final capping, just confirmation from what we're hearing, the final capping has not occurred in any of the cells at this time. Is that correct?
I'd like to confirm that there were not some final caps in the early 2000s. I'm going off memory, and I'd hate to say anything that is incorrect. So I would like to defer but confirm that that's the case.
Okay, so possibly some capping in the early 2000s. And to that point of the final capping, is that what's known as the reclamation process would follow that capping? Like the reclamation that restores the land back to a usable, I'm not sure, acreage, usable surface for public, public use. Is that part of that reclamation capping process? Is that together?
Yes.
Okay, and just to clarify, there are, of all the cells 1 through 6 and subsections, there is no reclamation then that has happened at this time because there might be capping, but let me rephrase. Has there been any reclamation that has occurred on any of the cells 1 through 6? Well, not 6, but 1 through 5.
No, those aren't final capped yet.
So not any cell 1 through 5 and the sub are not capped yet?
Maybe I'd like to defer. I think maybe Brent Lurch, our area environmental manager, may be able to help provide some clarity if he's available to make comment.
Good evening. I'm Brent Lurch, area environmental manager for public services. So on the southern side, near, it would be cells 1 and 2 on the side slope. In the early 2000s, we had 2 different construction final cover activities. And you can kind of see that through the aerials. There's some of that vegetated area. As far as reclamation of that, really you don't go into post-closure until everything is final closed and it's not an active facility. So our post-closure bond goes in once everything is closed. It's not like we have started the clock because we closed previous. It's once everything's, wrapped up and finished. And then to Brian's previous comment of it's going in stages, it's really just a construction timing as to why that happens. So, with our shorter construction windows, typically you can do maybe 10 to 20 acres at a time, and we have that staged out coming here in the future. So we will be continuing to close on those areas. But one thing that we do want to make sure prior to that is that we have hit our final grades and we're at a point where, we don't have to ruin that area if we had additional operations. So we're beginning the phases as the existing as permitted landfill is finishing up. We're going to be starting on that east side and then marching towards the west with final cover. That's the overall.
Okay. And then I've been informed, thank you, Chair Fowler, that we'll have the opportunity to ask more questions. I just want to clarify one for testimony this evening, that Benton County, I believe it was referring to the franchise agreement, that Benton County is guaranteed a use of waste management or landfill space to a certain date. Is that accurate from that public testimony?
I believe that's in the franchise, but I'll go back and review it and get an answer to you during the open record period.
Okay, so we'll know whether or not Benton County has that assured waste disposal access, correct? Okay, that's all for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Condit and Mr. Roop.
Thank you for listening to everyone and for your endurance.
We'll move to a couple of consideration of procedural motions. Mr. Roop, I recall during your earlier testimony that you'd requested an extension of 14 days. Now would be the time if you would still like that extension.
Yes, we would still like that extension.
Thank you for that clarification. Pursuant to ORS 197.797 (6) because a request has been made, the commission must either grant a continuance and continue the hearing or hold the record open. I'd like to entertain a motion at this point. Commissioner Struthers.
I move to continue the hearing to June 17th at 6 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fulford. We had, because during the applicant presentation, the request was made, we had anticipated that the extension request may be forwarded to us. And so council has very kindly provided some explanatory notes. So before we take the vote amongst the commission on the duly made motion, I thought I would share these notes to more fully inform the discussion prior to the vote. First, during the continued hearing, the county's planning staff will first present a supplemental staff report that will be made available no later than June 10th, 2025. Thereafter, oral testimony will be heard in the same order as during our 4 previous meetings. Oral and written testimony at the continued hearing is limited to new evidence, arguments, or testimony. If new written evidence is submitted at the continued hearing, any person may request prior to the conclusion of the continued hearing that the record be left open for at least 7 days to submit additional responsive written evidence, arguments, or testimony that is only for the purpose of responding to the new written evidence. Unless waived by the applicant is allowed at least 7 days after the record is closed to all other parties to submit final written arguments in support of the application. The applicant's final submittal shall be considered a part of the record, but shall not include any new evidence. The 7-day period is not subject to the limitation of ORS 215.427. Written testimony may be submitted prior to the continued hearing at the Community Development Department in one of 4 ways: through the online form of the county's website, through regular mail addressed to the Community Development Department at 4500 Southwest Research Way, Corvallis, Oregon, 97333-1139, through email to publiccomment@bentoncountyor.gov, or through hand delivery to the Community Development Department at the address above. Because the applicant has made the request to present additional testimony, the period of continuance of the hearing is not subject to the local decision time limit at ORS 215.427, and the 7-day period for the applicant's final written argument is also not subject to the limit of ORS 215.427. So that was a little information that may inform our discussions. Commissioner Struthers.
I have 2 questions because there was a lot of information there. The first one is, you said oral testimony will commence in the same order for only new evidence. Does that include public allowing to enter new evidence at that time?
Yes.
And then my second question, and maybe it's a request of staff, can we get that summarized in a format that can be posted publicly? Like that timeline that you provided? And maybe that's a question to staff. I apologize, staff. Thank you.
Is there further discussion prior to calling for the vote?
Chair Fowler, I do have a question. So the opportunity for council to ask, for the commissioners to ask, planning commissioners to ask questions of the applicant related to tonight's testimony, where would that take place in this process?
So the planning commissioners will have the opportunity, as we did in the earlier hearings, to ask questions of the staff and the applicant, as well as the public who is offering new testimony.
And would our questions, though, be specific to only the new information?
New evidence is limited to new. Our questions can be comprehensive.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion, questions? I will then call
Chair
for.
Fowler, excuse me,
Yes.
could I just interrupt? I just wanted to confirm that the applicant's understanding and does not have any objection to this extension, which is going to add a 40 days to the 150-day deadline, the current one, and then also the 7-day period for any final written argument is not included in the 150 days.
No objection to the extension, and yes, it's statutory that the rebuttal period is not subject to the 120-day or 150-day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Condit. Seeing no other call for discussion, I will then call for the vote. All those in favor of continuing this hearing to June 17th at 6 p.m. signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So this hearing is now continued to June 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. And we are adjourned. Thank you all. Very much appreciate